2, 1, and all right, all of you out there on the internet, it is Tuesday, which means it's time for Comic Book School Live. And if you are here to learn about the craft and business of making comics, you have absolutely come to the right place. My name is Buddy Scalera. I'm the founder of Comic Book School, a place where we talk about the craft and business of making comics. I almost sounded like Shatner there. Speaking of William Shatner, the commander of my enterprise, Mike the Knife Fasolo. Mike, how are you?
I'm doing well, buddy. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I feel like tonight neither of us were as prepared as we wanted to be, but I still think we're going to be able to put on a pretty good show, at very least a mediocre show.
I think so as well. And you're also wearing a hat.
I'm wearing a hat. I didn't get to wear this hat. I'm wearing all of my Mustang regalia because April showers bring Mustang powers. What do you think of that? I have my convertible Mustang. I brought it out, took down the roof, and I was like, I am ready to rock April.
Were you just cruising around?
I just let it idle in the driveway. I'm just trying to keep the engine going. I'm going to have to get some new tires, get the oil changed, but I did take it for a little spin around the block.
Nice. Was the hair just blowing?
My hair was, well, no, I had my Mustang hat on. The feeling of your hair blowing is good for the first couple minutes, and then you get a headache.
Yeah, and then it also gets super loud, and all the wind's just smashing in the face, and the bugs fly into your eyes. It's awful.
And Vince likes the cool opener, probably because Vince created it.
It is a very cool opener.
Vince made it. He is the guy. He is the secret behind that. So, and for that, we give Vince a nice round of applause. And, so, Vince, thank you for the opener. We do appreciate it. And we'll just stop that right there. Anyway, tonight, Mike, we have an educational episode. We talk about the craft and business of making comics. This episode is about the craft, something that you are somewhat of an expert on. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your background so they understand the context of why you're such a respected voice in writing?
Why I'm a crafter?
Why you're so crafty?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially started out on Robot Chicken doing that whole TV writing thing. And
you've won 3 Emmys, right?
They're hard to keep track of, but yeah, it's three, I think.
I have no problem keeping track of my Emmys. No trouble at all. And I am a comic book writer, mostly for Marvel Comics, best known probably for my work on Deadpool and then a smattering of other things. I'm not sure if smattering is the right word, but it's the word I'm going to go with. Yeah. So, Mike, when we as creators go to publish work, we often think about the structural elements like conflict and resolution. And tonight we're going to talk about 4 types of conflicts and then how writers can interweave it into their story. How does that sound to you?
That sounds like a conflict.
That does sound like a conflict. And I am going to pull up some slides because I know you love my slides.
I love your slides.
Love
and
my
I like
slides.
When you push the wrong buttons. That's even funner.
I'm getting the buttons down here and there. Every once in a while I get the buttons right. I've made this an X-Men themed presentation tonight. I hope you like it.
I do, because you got the old school original X-Men versus the new school new X-Men.
Do you remember what issue number this was of the X-Men? Does anybody even in the audience, hold on, smattering is the technical term. Philip Burnett backing me there. He is a professional linguist at Stanford University. So if Philip says it's smattering, indeed it is smattering. So I am gonna say that I was supposed to remember the issue numbers. So hit the button, same button twice. I don't remember the cover. I think this is cover number 100 or something.
This
Of the
is
X-Men.
giant size issue
No,
number 4.
no. Okay. So, Mike, before we get started, what is conflict
What
when
is
we think
conflict?
about storytelling? We have these two opposing forces. Oh, I'm professionally smattered. It's like being professionally flattered, I think.
Yeah, it'll work.
So, Mike, what
Depends on what your profession is.
what is conflict, Mike?
It's conflict. It's when two opposing forces come together and smash heads.
You know, we talked a little bit about this on our episode with the Breakfast Club, which is to say that we have a force that wants to keep students in school on a Saturday, and we have the students who want to be out on a Saturday. That is conflict. It's two different opposing forces want to occupy the same space, and they create a conflict. In this particular picture, you have the old X-Men who want to be known as the X-Men, and you have the new X-Men who also want to be known as the X-Men. And that was conflict. And conflict, I would say, is everything is a setup in a story, Mike, until you define the conflict. Everything is just world building and character development. And until you come to that intersection where two characters or opposing forces wish to occupy the same space at the same time, that's one of the definitions, one of the ways you can think about conflict. How is that for you?
I think that works well. That is not. It does not conflict with me.
Now, there are probably better definitions of it, but for me, always in the back of my mind, I've always looked for conflict whenever I'm reviewing my own work, something that you've written, something that a student has written. I'm immediately saying, okay, we have world building. Where's the conflict? And we were able to identify that there are 4 types of story conflicts. Now, I didn't make this up. It's all over the internet. It's on the Wikipedias and the encyclopedias and all those different things. But we will take this knowledge, Mike, and we will define it for comic book creators. This is mostly focused for writers, but as an artist, if you are given a script and you don't see any conflict, physical conflict, just punching for punching's reasons, often will indicate that the writer doesn't have a real conflict. So understanding how to identify conflict will help you as a partner in that storytelling to push your writer to tell a better story. And Mike, it's true, right? Like sometimes an artist has to push back and say, where's the story?
Where's the conflict?
What's the conflict? And you are well within your rights to do that. So we're going to go through 4 types of story conflict. If people can guess the cover that I took this from in the next couple of slides, they will win official comic book school no prize.
The old no prize.
The old no prize. All right. So first type, man versus self.
Oh, that's a good picture.
Isn't that right? Wolverine versus self.
Yep.
So, Mike, in storytelling, what would man versus self potentially be? How might you describe a man versus self? Now, we should note that it's not just men; it is mankind as a species. So, man versus self. What is man versus self, Mike?
It's when you're fighting yourself. You want something even though you probably know you shouldn't do it, and it's a battle. Like, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? You know you shouldn't do it, but it's might have to be done.
Yeah, often there's peer pressure involved. There are times when somebody who might not be a villain might turn to crime, and they might be at odds with themselves. and they might be battling their own conscience. And the battle of one's own conscience is very powerful. And sometimes we see this coming out in dreams or in expressions of frustration and anger. But man versus self is that internal conflict where you're trying to decide what the right thing is. So it looks like we got Philip Burnett like this one, and Tony versus the bottle. That was a good one.
That's a good
Tony
one.
Stark, who is Iron Man. Of course, everyone knows that from the movies. And he took to drinking because of pressure and other external forces, but he would have to battle the bottle and determine if he should drink or not. And that was a classic man versus self. Nobody was forcing him to do it. That was a man versus self story conflict. So somebody wrestles with their own conscience. Any other thoughts on that before we progress forward, Mike?
This might be the hardest one because you're fighting yourself. There's really nothing external to fight. It's all going on in your head. That's the tough part.
Yeah, and people make bad decisions all the time, and that's what makes stories interesting.
Yeah.
And often people don't even know their own motivation, which is why so many people need to go to therapy to discover about themselves, right? We live the world looking outward, not looking inward and seeing what we look like to the rest of the world. So man versus self as the first type of story conflict. You ready for number two?
Yep, hit me up.
Anybody want to guess? Does anybody know what cover this is from? The audience at large, all three of them?
I'm going to say giant size X-Men number.
You're going to say that for everything. All right. This is, I believe, X-Men 106, if I had to guess. Man versus man. Classic conflict. Once again, two characters who might be directly and physically opposed to each other. Philip Burnett's guess was correct. There you go.
You win the no prize.
You won the first no prize. So, Mike, what is man versus man as visualized by this cover? And you're welcome to try to guess the cover if you know it.
This is, obviously Wolverine versus Captain America. It's, Harry Potter versus Voldemort. It's the one versus the other, the good guy versus the bad guy, at least in that one instance.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think man versus man, that you have I actually don't think that it is a Jim Lee cover. If I'm not mistaken, I think that's a Mike Zeck cover, Philip Burnett. I think that is Mike Zeck. And that cover, I know what issue it is. Mike, we'll leave it
issue number 4?
It is actually Captain America Annual number 8.
Oh,
I have this. Yes, I have this issue. I have never read it. I just love the cover. So I bought it. And I love it. I would say that man versus man has the clearest conflict. Now, it doesn't always have to be physical. Obviously, in a visual medium and like superheroics, visual is better. But sometimes it's just two characters mentally sparring with each other. Mike Zuckerberg.
That doesn't sound right.
I don't think so. Me, the creator of Facebook, Philip Burnett is going full-on man versus self.
Man versus typewriter.
Man versus keyboard. Yes, autocorrect is killing you. I think it is Mike Zeck. Yep.
Put that on number 5.
We gave him all the chances. So that was yep. That absolutely dumb. You are correct. So Elon versus the world, pick one, but man versus man, it's a classic conflict. It can be a mental conflict of two characters. Now, if they are equally matched, it's generally more interesting. That is a more powerful character beating up a smaller or less powerful character. Generally not as interesting and, probably over pretty quickly, unless you make it interesting. But at the core of it, the man versus man nature is always a classic. That is, you have two characters opposing in direction, Tony Stark versus Captain America, right? You got these characters that are very strong, thoughtful, strong-headed characters, physically strong, and you create that conflict. and you have an interesting story. What do you think?
Could be good. It's like Sherlock Holmes versus Moriarty. Those are more mental battles.
Those are more mental battles.
Trying to outsmart each other.
What was Moriarty? I it just struck me that I don't even, what was Moriarty? What was he a shoemaker, a cobbler? I mean, what was he?
I believe he was a cobbler. Yeah.
And everybody loves a good apple cobbler. Because, like, if anybody knows what exactly Moriarty did, I'd be amazed. I just don't know.
He was a good villain, though.
Apparently, went off the waterfall with Holmes. Okay. Oh, he was a professor.
Oh.
And Sherlock's evil brother, was it?
Was it HBO? Whatever the TV series was, I think it was his brother.
Was it?
I think.
And Gatilla comes back to more like Elon versus reality, Elon versus good taste. I am with Gatilla. Elon versus good taste. I am stunned sometimes when I see him tweet, but you can't look away. You just can't look away. So was the evil brother, and was he also a professor? And what did he profess?
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. If only there was a magic box where we could look these things up on.
If only we could Google something. All right. So this was definitely, what is this? Invincible versus Omni-Man is a good match.
Yes.
Conflict versus 1 and Conflict 2. How is that? I read of the Invincible when it first came out.
Omni-Man was his father. And
right.
But it also is a good conflict because it's kind of both of their fighting each other and fighting internally. Like, I can't beat this guy up. He's my father, but he's doing bad things. So how do I stop him? And should I stop him? And all that.
I'm going to say that Gatilla gets the.
That's a good one.
He really did a good mashup. Thank you, Gatilla. We appreciate that. We like your. And then it said Mycroft Holmes was Sherlock's smarter brother. Is that right?
I think that was the TV series.
Was that the Enola Holmes series?
That was the Benedict Cumberbatch series.
Benedict Cumberbatch series. I love that guy's name. Every time I hear that, I'm like, it's Engelbert Humperdinck and Benedict Cumberbatch, and I'm like, those are just great names. Like, no one.
Those are just words you're putting together. They don't make any sense.
You're like, no, a great name would be Benedict Cumberbatch. He lived down the block from Engelbert Humperdinck. All right. And then Vince says, Moriarty wanted to, you read it. I can't read tonight.
Moriarty wanted Sherlock out of his way because he was actually prying into Moriarty's criminal network in order to free society from the vials of this criminal genius.
Wow. Vince V is on tonight. Vince V is like rocking it tonight.
Yeah, he knows stuff.
Wow. I'm impressed. I'm wholly impressed.
Lots of people are winning no prizes.
Whew. Let's just hold on. Let me pull up. I'm going to give a different round of applause.
Oh, that's the real one.
Yeah, there you go. Vince had to work on that one. That took a lot of typing and probably had to battle autocorrect on that one. All right, so there you go. Vince gives himself a kaboom. All right, Mike. So next one, number 3, is man versus nature. Now, one of the things that epitomizes man versus nature is neither good nor bad. It is a force that exerts itself. It doesn't really have an opinion. It doesn't have a bias.
As far as you know.
As far as you know, the Earth and the Moon and the Sun are not in cahoots. But I'm going to say, hold on, I'm going to take the bag of peanut shells. I'm sorry, that's not an option. You only get the no prize and the cheer. And taking that no prize to the bank. You should, Philip, because you know what? You should take that to the bank and try to cash it. It's like a blue ink thing. So, Mike, nature is neither a positive nor is it a negative force. It just is. But it does have a dramatic impact on characters and often affects the story. Man versus nature. Talk to me about your thoughts of this conflict.
This is, I think, one of the better ones, because nature can be as powerful as you want it to be or as it needs to be. And, when you're fighting that, it seems you're up against impossible odds. It's any disaster movie, like, Armageddon,
Here's one from Burnett.
Robinson Crusoe, yes.
Yep. Moby Dick.
Yeah.
Yep.
Moby Dick, yep.
Man versus Nature.
And then
yep.
you get into the bigger ones, like, Joe versus the Volcano, things like that. It's
the core, the center of the earth.
Core, one of my favorites.
Go down there and put a bomb in there.
Yeah, because how do you beat nature at its own game? And you have to be smarter and, just do what you can.
The problem with Man versus Nature is, and I'll probably say this wrong, and feel free to make fun of me for my incorrect pronunciation, but Deus ex in machina. That is the idea. God is in the machine. That is, suddenly something comes along. You're like, I need a conflict, or I need a way to make the story more interesting. Oh, a snowstorm, right? Like, and you're like, that's just sometimes lazy writing. I think the nature has to be part of the story. Moby Dick, Robinson Crusoe are good examples of how that nature is the conflict and that will drive action from the main characters.
Jaws,
right. Vince offered Zoolander, but then maybe not. I like Vince is autocorrecting himself at that point. So I think that's true. It is one of the better ones, but it can also be dangerously lame if you don't use it right.
That's true. Yes.
Like this, and nature can begin a story like the movie Gravity. Like it is nature that causes an effect that propels. It's the inciting incident. But I think Deus, but otherwise you had it right. It's Deus ex in machina, I think. And Facebook user anonymous. I think anybody on Facebook comes through as anonymous for us, Mike.
Huh. We should get that fixed.
I think it's Anthony usually comes on there. School for kids who can't read. Go.
Man, he's having trouble with that keyboard.
Oh, all right. So fourth one, Mike. Man versus Society.
I know that cover. I don't know the number of it though, but I know it.
It is a beautiful cover. Do you remember the storyline? What it was called?
Days of Future Past.
That's right. It is Anthony, my California friend who's now here on the East Coast, and Philip gives us a grr. Mike, Days of Future Past. In this cover, you can see that this is a classic Man versus Society. That is, society is pursuing the mutants, and the mutants are on the run, and that many of the mutants that we know and love have been slain or apprehended. We have Wolverine and Kitty Pryde on the cover defending against this spotlight of society. It could not be more metaphorical. What do you think?
I think it's good. This is like, I was going to say 1984, the book, but I don't know if that would be like a Man versus Society thing.
I would say that it is, because government represents society and government insists upon conformity and rules. And anybody trying to step out of that is instantly in conflict with the societal construct of government. So I do believe that 1984 would fit well into the Man versus Society.
You're welcome then.
Man versus Society. I think this is a tough one. I think any time you have a story where a main character is rebelling against the norms of society or some expectation of society where you're expected to go and conform, and the X-Men are basically were invented or created on that premise, you have a great conflict. Now, obviously, Man versus Society has a great visual canvas. That is, it's usually going to take place outdoors. It's going to be rebellions. It's going to be, picket signs, fighting the authorities. It feels like this one has an epic potential.
This is like Hunger Games. That's a society thing as well. It's also man versus man and man versus self. That might have everything, all four of them.
Any film involving the Jim Crow South. I'm trying to think. What movie was the Mississippi Burning?
Mississippi
Wasn't that
Burning.
Mississippi Burning. Yep. That's a really great example because, society was thinking a certain way and has obviously changed. Now we look back on that with a new lens, and that was Man versus Society. Watchmen.
Yep.
Another great example of who, and really the premise of that is who watches the Watchmen. If they are the Watchmen who are here to protect us and watch, who watches the Watchmen? Vince on a roll with his Alan Moore's V for Vendetta, another one. So Vin's just going to run through the Alan Moore catalog.
I don't know if I ever read V for Vendetta.
Yeah, it's a different.
That's the alternate reality one.
And the van has like a unicorn and a rainbow on the side, and like playing a guitar and stuff. Remember when we were growing up, Mike? Those vans that had the big paintings on the side. That was big stuff. That was cool.
That
was cool. And denim jackets with like Iron Maiden Number of the Beast painted on the back.
Yeah, good times.
Good times. I never got that. I never got one of those. I think I'm going to get one of those for myself. But I think these are good examples. And since Burnett is on tonight, I wanted to show something cool. Mike, do you mind if I deviate from the script for a moment?
Feel free.
Feel free. I am going to present something, a gift that Burnett gave to us just tonight. Hope you don't mind, Philip Burnett, but I am going to show one of the little gifts that you gave to us. And here's the gift. So Philip Burnett, and you could see the share, right, Mike?
Yep.
All right. So Philip Burnett, an excellent artist, part of the comic book school community, offered up a time lapse. And here it is.
Oh, I like these.
Yeah, Burnett's got some real skills. And you can see how he's probably pulling down layers. It looks like Clip Studio paint he's using. And, he's filling in, darkening areas, finding his shading, finding his light source, building things out so that they have dimension and depth. And wow. Is that great or what?
I like that. That's really great.
Yeah, so that's part of the comic book school community. You can find it right here. I'll copy the URL. And then how do I stop sharing? Stop sharing. I'll put it in here if you want to see it. There you go. Burnett, there you go. Oh, dear. That's right. But you did a good job. And then Gatilla says, my favorite Alan Moore run was his run on Radioactive Man, where he was a heroin-addicted jazz critic. Wait, that was The Simpsons. Okay, well, I appreciate that contribution. And you can find our Facebook group here. It is a private group. And it's free to join, but it's $50 a minute to be on it after you join. So it's free to join, though.
Free to join.
That's $50 a minute. You just swipe your credit card, and it goes directly to a fund for you, Mike, so we could buy a new background for you.
So I don't look like I'm in prison.
And then Philip Burnett, of course, said TYVM, which I'm assuming is thank you very much.
Oh.
Art imitating life. Okay, Mike, so we're going to go back. We're almost done. And I know that people are dying to see what happens next. And what happens next is we continue with our little PowerPoint. So we did our 4 types of story conflict. And I think I've always thought a lot about these. I try to make sure I fit them into my stories. I really appreciate the input from the community and from your great thinking leadership, Mike. So thank you for rolling with this with me.
You're welcome.
Do you want to see an Apocalypse Boulevard update, Mike?
I was just about to ask you what the updates were.
Well, I'm here to show you that the Kickstarter campaign, this was a reveal a couple weeks ago, just to the Kickstarter community. I had asked them to vote on what they wanted in terms of homage covers. So on the left is an homage to the original Mad Max movie.
Mm-hmm. I see it.
And then on the right is an homage to Action Comics #1.
That's a really good one.
That's a really good one. You can't really see it on the bottom, but that's a little nod to Stan the Manly I have to say that Stan has had a great and lasting impact on me as a creator, and I wanted to honor Stan in some way. So this is the last 2 issues of the Comic Book Skull. Thank you, Philip. Thank you. Thanks, Vince. All good. These are, we just wrapped them up. We had a little delay in some of the production and the printing problems, paper shortages still, backups and things of that nature. But I think we're about to get on the press. So while we had promised to deliver in the month of March, I anticipate we will probably deliver in the month of April. So not too bad, but everything's done. And these are the covers. What do you think?
I think they're very cool. I really like the Superman homage one. That's a great one.
Yeah, he chose a slightly different angle. He rotated it a little bit. And thank you. Anthony's read issue 1 and 2. I bet you're going to love 3 and 4. By the way, Mike, these covers have been colored by someone in our Comic Book School community, Mike Ponce.
Oh,
yes.
I've heard that name before.
That's right. Mike Ponce stepped up. We got an opportunity to tap into the community, and he's a contributor. And I don't know if this is not obviously his first published work, but it's his first published work on one of my comics. How's that?
Well, there you go. That's
there
what's
you go.
Gonna make him.
Yeah, his career is practically taken off already. All right, so that's the preview. Now, Mike, we sometimes have a little bit of push and pull. And when it comes to trivia time, you and I have different ideas. I thought we could have a different type of piece of trivia tonight. And tonight I bring to you the history of gunpowder. Founded it was considered, according to Wikipedia, one of the 4 great inventions that came out of China. Great being an operative word and a matter of perspective if you are, depending on which end of the gunpowder you are.
But that's very true.
Depending on what side of the hurricane you're on. But gunpowder obviously had many, many uses, but it was a combination of some common minerals. And I thought that this was a kind of interesting piece of trivia to know how gunpowder was created in China originally, and then how it traveled the world through trade and through the Silk Road. Mike, what were your thoughts when you were doing a little background research on gunpowder?
Well, I do find it interesting. And when I was reading it, I did discover that it was invented by alchemists who were actually looking for the elixir of immortality.
Ironic, no?
Yeah, I was like, that's very true. So something like that really sparked my interest. Another pun right there sparked me. But it's a cool thing to know about if you're writing something like, oh, let's do a story about not the history of gunpowder, but what if gunpowder was invented 1,000 years before this?
Or there's a time travel story.
Or there's a time travel story, which I know you hate.
Right, there you go. A little bit of charcoal, a little bit of saltpeter, a little bit of sulfur, and boom. But that's the thing. It's not an amazingly complicated recipe.
Yeah.
Today, we know, the correct proportions to mix gunpowder. But if you were to go backwards in time and be battling, you might be looking for these ingredients to be able to turn the tide of the war in your favor.
Yeah, and this, I mean, it was as far back as the 500s.
As the 500s, so saltpeter was added to World War I soldiers' diet so they wouldn't get frisky with the local ladies. Facts.
That sounds weird.
It does sound weird.
Weird. But yeah, there's a bunch of stuff they, obviously they also used.
So if you're out to dinner with your friend Peter, you don't go past the saltpeter. I don't even get an applause.
You don't even.
That joke was so bad. That joke was so bad. How bad was it? Anyway, We will provide a link to Gunpowder in the show notes. And Mike, good show. Thank you for coming along and bringing your writing expertise. All kidding aside, Mike is a very successful writer. Wait, no applause. We got no applause. Mike is indeed a very successful writer, and all of you are going to create even better comics. Thanks to the Craft and Business of Making Comics show here every Tuesday. If you can, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. That does help us. We are very happy to put this show on, and we would love to see a bigger audience each time. So once again, like, comment, and subscribe if you don't. Mike, I will see you next Tuesday. I look forward to seeing everybody again next week. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.